There's no other country outside the third world where it's tougher to legally organize a union. One law did more to cripple effective union organizing than any other, and repealing this law could help get labor back onto its feet. Labor lawyer and one of my personal favorite Chicagoans, Thomas Gagin, writes in his excellent book, Which Side Are You On? When people ask me, why can't labor organize the way it did in the 30s? The answer is simple. Everything we did then is now illegal. Since the passage of the Labor Management Relations Act of 1947, better known as the Taft-Hartley Act, American labor has been fighting with both hands tied behind its back. Management doesn't want a fair fight because in a fair fight, they'll lose. This law was passed in 1947 when Republicans and Southern Democrats joined together to override President Truman's veto. The goal was mainly to crush organizing on the grand scale that had been seen in the 1930s. It outlawed mass picketing, secondary strikes of neutral employers, sit-down strikes, all of the most effective tactics that made the 1930s such a boom time for union organizing. It also outlawed unions from controlling a pension fund, which would have given unions the power to start buying companies, something that mine workers union leader John L. Lewis had already begun doing in the 1940s. At one point, the United Mine Workers Pension Fund owned the National Bank of Washington. This was a huge threat to capital and a major motivator for the passage of Taft-Hartley. Because of that law, it's now a federal crime for a union to control a pension fund, while at the same time, completely commonplace for business owners to control them or even destroy them. Taft-Hartley intentionally ended card checks, crippling union organizing with hearings, campaign periods, secret ballot elections, and other hoops before a union can be recognized in the U.S. All of these are huge advantages for union-busting companies that want to stop unions. According to Gagin, when Canadian workers want to form a union, all they have to do is sign cards that say they authorize the union to represent them. If they get 55% of workers to sign, the employer must bargain with that new union. There are no hearings, no extra elections, no endless lawsuits. They don't have a law like this crippling union organization. Gagin writes, Canadian workers just sign cards and bang, they're in a union. It goes so fast, there's no chance to fire them. Finally, it was Taft-Hartley that helped transform modern American unions into giant lumbering bureaucracies by making collective bargaining agreements enforceable as contracts, putting the onus on unions to hold their members to the language of those contracts. As Gagin says, Taft-Hartley envisioned a world where unions would no longer need to strike anymore. How nice for business owners. This is a huge clue about who was in the driver's seat when this law was written. Instead, there would be arbitration and lawyers. People need to realize that unions are weak in this country because laws have been passed with the direct intention of weakening unions. This was completely intentional. Unions have one primary imperative that stockholders and their handmaidens in management hate: raising worker wages. This is what makes unions good for us and bad for the rich. When I sit here and talk about repealing a law that operated like a giant chunk of kryptonite to union organizing for the past 3/4 of a century, I am completely aware that neither the Democrats nor Republicans would ever sit by and allow it to happen. Voting blue will never end Taft-Hartley. We need to build a working class organization to advocate for changes like this because the wealthy control both major parties in this country. Let's make it easier to join a union and set the working class free in this country while raising our wages at the same time. Repealing Taft-Hartley is a great place to start. Please like, follow, favorite, and subscribe to my free Substack where you can get more detail in every post. Let's make them pay, brothers and sisters.